Welcome back to JT's Film Reviews. I am your host, JT Johnson, and this week I take a look at Quentin Tarantino's third film, Jackie Brown. Before I get to my Jackie Brown review first, I want to talk about a piece of news that was released about a week ago, actually probably about 2 weeks ago by the time you watch this video. I want to talk about the James Bond deal that was made with Amazon. For me, that was the biggest news over the past couple of weeks, especially considering that it looks like the Oscars are going to be a big snooze fest this year. But anyway, it's been reported that Amazon has paid $1 billion. I almost wanted to say that in a Dr. Evil voice, to the Broccoli family. In this case, Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson, the people who have really controlled the creative direction of Bond since GoldenEye in 1995. They've both been involved with the films far back. Barbara Broccoli is the daughter of Albert R. Cubby Broccoli, who initially got the rights to the Bond films, at least half of them, in 1962, in order to produce Dr. No. His producing partner in those days was a man named Harry Saltzman. Harry Saltzman eventually sold his half of the rights to United Artists, and that's how a studio got control of roughly half the rights. And that's the way it always was. But Cubby Broccoli still maintained creative control of the Bond franchise. And for 60 years, it was the Broccoli family. So this is a shocking bit of news because now a studio has full creative control of the direction of James Bond. And it's Amazon. And the reactions have been exactly what I thought that was going to be. Negative. Like people going, oh, now there's going to be a James Bond universe. I even had that thought. I was calling it the Bond verse. And my friend called it the JBU is coming. That's what he said about it. But the thing I want to talk about is first to the Broccoli family. Neither Barbara Broccoli nor Michael G. Wilson really had any kids that I think wanted to take over anyway. Barbara Broccoli is 65. Michael G. Wilson is 83. He kind of had one foot out the door anyway. It was mostly Barbara's show over the past few films. To them, I say, have a happy retirement, because I've seen negative people saying, oh, they sold out. These people just ended one of the best eras of James Bond ever with Daniel Craig when they released No Time to Die. They have carried on their father's legacy extremely well. And if they want to retire, it's a very well-earned retirement. And I wish them well. I don't think anyone should be negative towards them. However, I do want to talk to Amazon for a little bit. And I've got some notes here that I wrote down, so I am going to look down at this because I have a film journal and sometimes I just write down my thoughts. I have 4 points I want to make that can help make a good James Bond franchise era under Amazon. First thing, don't do what Star Wars and Marvel have done. Don't oversaturate the market. Don't have movie, television show, movie, television show, movie. And if you have no movies, don't have a whole bunch of television shows that eventually is just going to cause fatigue to set in. Because that's what's happened at Marvel. It's what's happened at Star Wars. And the fandom is kind of responding negatively to that stuff. Because it's just too much. You get tired after a while. It's good to have breaks every once in a while. Build the anticipation. You can have TV shows, just don't have like 3 or 4 in the tank and then release them one right after the other. I just don't think that would work. Secondly, get someone with a cohesive vision. Get a Kevin Feige. The reason Marvel has done this the best, even though there's been some fatigue over the last few years with this multiverse saga, is that there's someone at the helm guiding the ship. And if it is starting to stray off course, trying to get it back on course, which I think Feige has been trying to do and has succeeded in terms of Deadpool and Wolverine last year is a good example. Kind of righting the ship and saying, okay, this is where we're going to go. Make sure they just have, it'll just help you with a narrative vision for the whole thing. Everything will stream properly. No pun intended on the whole stream thing. Now, thirdly, modernize the Bond character. However, don't overcorrect. And I'm not saying like don't go woke or anything like that. What I'm saying is Bond, and there are certain traits about him, but you can modernize those traits. For example, they really already did it with Daniel Craig. In Daniel Craig's era, Bond's womanizing ways was not viewed as this positive character trait like it was with prior Bond actors. It was a character flaw. It showed how damaged the man was. And it was a good adaptation and update on that aspect of the character. So you can change it to where it's still Bond at the core, but you've modernized it to where you're speaking to today's audience. You don't have to go back in time either. That's another thing. Don't go back in time and say, oh, well, we'll make a 60s Bond film where he can just be a total asshole. No. I love Goldfinger. I would not want Goldfinger made today, considering the problematic stuff that's in that movie. And then finally, prioritize movies over TV. And what I mean by that is release a movie, see how it does, of course, like you would with anything. But if a character pops in that movie and becomes a fan favorite, then consider, well, can we do something with that character in television? Is there some meat on that bone for that character? And therefore, you're really prioritizing the movies, and then you're maybe doing these little side shows for characters that maybe the fans really like. Fans will probably positively respond to that. Again, don't do 3 or 4 shows. We don't necessarily need shows for iconic characters. We don't need a show for Q or Moneypenny or M. How did they become who they became? Here's an origin story. We don't need that. Now, that said, I'm going to try to look at this positively. So to Amazon, I say this: until you give me something that sucks, you're not ruining the franchise yet, right? I mean, you haven't done anything yet, so I can't judge you for that. So all I ask is that just try to do good with the series, or better yet, as M would say in the movies, don't muck it up. I think it's time to get on to the main review for tonight. And, of course, like I said in the intro, that is Quentin Tarantino's third film, Jackie Brown. Now, a little history on Tarantino first. In 1992, Quentin Tarantino released Reservoir Dogs. It was a hit, but it was mostly a sleeper hit, and it was mostly a hit within the industry. It really put his name on the map with Hollywood. But in 1994, Pulp Fiction hit theaters, and it was a massive hit. It was such a hit, it was imitated, it was parodied, it was studied by film historians. The whippy dialogue, the loose narrative, and so many films in the 90s took advantage of that. In the 90s, we went through this wonderful indie film wave, and this was really one of the biggest of them all, if not the biggest of them all, that had a huge cultural impact. So the question becomes, what does Tarantino do next? What does he follow it up with? And the answer is a bit surprising. He actually has an option on 3 Elmore Leonard books: Freaky Deaky, Kill Shot, and Rum Punch. And Tarantino's original idea is he's going to do Freaky Deaky or Kill Shot. But he reread Rum Punch and decided that that was the one he wanted to do because he kind of fell in love with the novel all over again. He did make some changes, though, of course. He gave the movie a blaxploitation feel. So this is really one of the first real times that Tarantino outwardly riffs on a genre that he grew up and admiring. He changes the main female lead, who I think is Jackie Burke, if I'm remembering correctly, to Jackie Brown, our title character, and makes her a black woman and casts Pam Grier, who was a star of blaxploitation films. And he did not tell Elmore Leonard about these changes, so he was a bit nervous to confront Elmore about the changes. But when he finally did, Leonard read the script and said to Quentin Tarantino, "This is the best adaptation of my work of all time," which I think at that point there had already been like 20-something adaptations of his novels. It was a lot of them anyway. And he said it was the best script he had ever read, just in general. So what was the result of this? Sadly, it was a muted response. It made $73 million on like a $20 million budget, so it was an indie hit. It was nowhere near the hit that Pulp Fiction was, and the only awards nominations that it really got is, I do believe Jackson and Greer got Golden Globe nominations, but Robert Forster got a Best Supporting Actor nomination. And that was really it. It gets kind of sandwiched in between Kill Bill, which would come out in 2003, and Pulp Fiction, which was 94. And that's why I feel the movie's a bit underrated in Quentin Tarantino's filmography. I should put it that way. It has its fans. I'm a super fan. I know a lot of other super fans, but it has just a kind of a cult following, and it tends to get lost in the discussion when Tarantino's films are brought up. Usually you talk about Pulp Fiction or Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood now. And so that's another reason I wanted to kind of cover this movie. For those who don't know what this movie is about, Greer plays the title character, obviously. She is a flight attendant for a very crappy airline, and so she has to make ends meet by other ways, and in this case, she's smuggling in $500,000 from Mexico to the United States for an arms dealer named Ordell Roby, played brilliantly by Samuel L. Jackson. Unfortunately, she's caught by the ATF. They want her to turn on Ordell. Ordell knows this, so he goes to a bail bondsman named Max Cherry, played by Robert Forster, and posts her bond and gets her out with the intention of killing her. However, she gets the upper hand on him, and she counter proposes, if I'm going to go to jail, you pay me, and I won't talk. And I have also another way for us to get the full $500,000, and you'll be square and all that stuff. And thus a game begins. And it's, you've got Max Cherry involved, and you've got Pam Grier involved, and you've got Samuel Jackson, and then you've got other characters like the ATF agents, one of which is played by Michael Keaton. And you got Bridget Fonda as Ordell's hippie girlfriend, and then you've got Robert De Niro as a low-level criminal who just got out of prison who's best friends with Ordell. Kind of a different take on the criminal roles that Robert De Niro would usually play. He plays a very subtle performance in this movie that's perfect and at times darkly funny. The movie's script, I don't care that it's an adaptation because it has all of Tarantino's signature details, dialogue, pacing. It's a little bit more mature, in my opinion, in terms of the storytelling. It's slower. Now, it's a slower paced movie, to be honest, actually, but I never feel that time go by when I watch this movie because I love hanging out with these characters. Even Ordell at times, who is a mean son of a bitch when it gets down to it. But Jackson plays him with this sort of sinister charm, and you end up kind of liking him. He's got some of the best scenes in the movies with some of the best quotes in the movie. And, the story, the tagline on the poster, I think, says it all. I've got it right here. 6 players on the trail of $500,000 in cash. There's only one question. Who's playing who? That's what it is. This movie really is a caper movie, and you're trying to figure out the twists and turns of, will Jackie Brown's plans work out, or will they fall apart? Will the ATF close in? Will Ordell get the upper hand? Max Cherry seems to be the only good character in the movie, if I'm being honest. The only one who is honest and upfront with everybody. And I want to talk about the performances real quick. First off, I think everyone got snubbed at the Oscars. I think Samuel Jackson should have gotten Best Supporting Actor. I think Pam Grier should have gotten Best Actress. And Robert Forster, to be honest, I think should have gotten Best Actor. He shouldn't have even been nominated for Best Supporting Actor. He should have been Best Actor. He is the male lead in this movie, in my opinion, and he deserves the big award. I think that Quentin Tarantino should have gotten Best Adaptation for a screenplay. I think that he should have gotten Best Director. This movie should have been a heavy contender for Best Picture. I think it lost out. It was the year of As Good as It Gets, I think. And that movie's good. Don't get me wrong. I like As Good as It Gets. Jack Nicholson's awesome. But this movie should have gotten the rewards, and it didn't. Beyond that, Jackie Brown is a fantastic movie. It's really a fantastic follow up to Pulp Fiction, and and worthy of being in Quentin Tarantino's filmography, which to me is second to none in how almost damn near perfect his filmography is. And yes, that's even including The Hateful Eight, which is my least favorite, but I've rewatched that film a few times and it's grown on me. So easily 5 out of 5 stars for Jackie Brown. I've always loved this movie. I love it now. I'll love it 10 years from now. It's just like any other Tarantino film. I always say that when you watch a Tarantino film, it's like watching a novel come to life. And if you haven't seen it, you've got to do yourself a favor and watch it. Now, keep in mind, it is a slower paced movie. So if you've seen some of Tarantino's later films, which were more fast paced with a bigger energy, this one is kind of kind of want to calm down for this one. Just kind of have fun with these characters. Have fun hanging out with them. Beyond that, I don't really have anything else to say. So I'll go ahead and tell you that my next Throwback Thursday review, we're going back to the land of anniversaries. We're going back 20 years again to 2005. I can't believe this film came out the same year as Batman Begins. When I made that connection, I was kind of like, whoa. But it is another superhero film, and it's another DC film. I'm going to go ahead and cover Constantine. So next Thursday, I'll post that review. If you enjoyed this review, I hope you'll be able to, or be kind to click the subscribe button. I'm still getting the hang of this YouTube thing. I'm old, and I'm also very late to the party. But I am enjoying doing it. I have had a lot of fun, and I hope to continue to do it for quite some time. So until I see you again, I'll see you at the movies.